Can food prevent colorectal cancer? Colorectal cancer is one of the more common cancers in the USA. About 1 in every 23 men and 1 in every 25 women will develop carcinoma of the colon or rectal carcinoma at some point during their lifetime. In the UK, in 2015, they report, this is the cancer research UK, that few fibers in the food has caused 30 out of 100 bowel cancer cases. Around 30% of bowel cancer cases in the UK in 2015 are caused by little fibers in their food. Also, they report that red meat, and more important than red meat itself, is the processed meat with all its chemical, additives, preservative, high salt, high sugar. These foods, they make it tasty and it will last a long life on the shelves in the supermarket. But these food also, they increase the shelf life of food, but decrease the shelf life or the lifespan of a human being who eat it. So, red meat, processed meat, and the way the meat is cooked, it caused colorectal cancer in the UK in 2015 in 13 out of 100 cases of bowel cancer. So, 13%. So, too little fiber cause 30%, 30%, and red meat, processed meat, caused 13%. It is estimated, again, that around 13 out of 100 bowel cancer cases in the UK are linked to eating red meat, processed meat, and cooking method. Cooking methods mean the direct exposure of meat to heat, like barbecues. Now, at the beginning of this talk, we reach too little fibers increase the risk of colorectal cancer by 30%, red meat and processed meat increase the risk of CRC by 13%. So now we are 30 plus 13, 43% of colorectal cases in the UK, colorectal cancer cases in the UK in 2015 are due to just these two modifiable risk factors in the lifestyle. Of course, too much food is linked to overweight, obesity, prediabetes, mean before the patient becoming diabetic, diabetes, type 2, and also when a person become obese, they become physically inactive. They don't do exercises. Also, there is increased incidence of tobacco smoking and alcohol drinking. So, bowel cancer cases caused by the overweight and obesity in the UK in 2015 were 11 out of each 100 cases of bowel cancer. It was 11% of bowel cancer cases are caused by overweight and obesity. So now the figure to prevent colorectal cancer is 30% plus 13% plus 11. We reach the figure of 54% of colorectal cancer cases can be prevented by only these 3 modifiable risk factors in the food and in the lifestyle. You see, to cut red meat, processed meat, and no burn meat, to eat more fibers, and to keep healthy body weight and healthy waistline can prevent colorectal cancer by 54% of the cases, and this is very well documented and it is studied also. Also, if you lose weight, you'll prevent many other cancers, because overweight and obesity, it caused at least 13 other types of cancer. You see, if you try to start baby steps in healthy lifestyle on daily basis, consistent, the result is compounded. What does it mean, and what do I mean by compounded? It means in standard mathematics, basic mathematics, 1 plus 1 is equal to. But what I mean that in biology and in living organism, and what I mean by compounded results is not 1 plus 1 is equal to. It might be equal to 10 or 42 or 902. And why do I say this? You see, basic mathematics, 1 plus 1 is 2. It is very good in some systems. It is useful in building bridges, houses. But basic mathematics, which depend on axioms mean laws, it is useful in some systems. It is not useful to understand another systems. And what we are talking about, and what I am talking about, is biology, the biological living system. So, if you take one rabbit, a male, and you add to it another rabbit, a female, add them together and wait for quite more time, you will find there is a reasonable chance of ending up with quite a bit more than 2 rabbits. So, if you wait a sufficient amount of time, you will have babies of this rabbit. And this is a good example of the biology and how it become more. Even in basic mathematics, if we add 1 liter of water to 1 liter of sand, we will get wet sand. We will not get 2 liters of it. You see, in mathematics, if we are working with modulo 2 arithmetics, 1 plus 1 is 0. And your computers is using this right now in the form of bitwise XOR. And modern computers, they could not function without it. So modulo 2 arithmetics is rather simple in its properties, but even the mathematician, they don't give a lot of attention to it, but the result is not simple. The result, it is not trivial. The result is much more. So, modulo arithmetics, 1 plus 1 could be 0, could be 1 plus 1, 2, could be 1 plus 1, 42, or 1 plus 1, 9,002. And what I mean by that? I mean, what I am talking about, it's biology, it is living organism. I'm talking about the cell function. And the cell is so small and tiny, it could not be seen by the eye. It has to be seen by microscope. And not the light microscope, a special microscope, which are called electron microscopes, and even more. And not only the cell, but we are talking about inside the cell, the nucleus. And inside the nucleus, there are genes, which are sequenced as nitrogenous bases on a strand of a DNA. Usually it is double strand DNA in helix form. And these genes, every gene, the code or the codon for 1 amino acid is 3 nitrogenous bases. But we have 4 nitrogenous bases sequenced on each strand of DNA. And this 4 nitrogenous bases to the power of 3, which is the number of the nitrogenous bases which make a gene, for one amino acid. It will be 4 by 4. It will be 16 by 4. It will be 64 codons for 20 amino acids. We have 23 amino acids, but the 3, they function differently, but the 20, they function to produce the protein in the body. And why the protein in the body is so important? The protein code, or the letters printed to make the protein, it is kept on the gene, in the DNA, in the nucleus, inside the cell. The protein is important because it is important for the structure of the body. It makes the bones, the muscles, the blood, the hair, the nails. Most of the structures in the body are made of protein. Also, it makes the function. It is the transport system. It transports oxygen, carbon dioxide, nutrient, waste products, fat, lipid, triglycerides, fatty acid. All it is carried with the protein in the blood. So you can imagine the protein like a lorry for transport, or like an airplane, or like a ship which carry the material or cargo in the canal. And this canal is the blood vessels. The protein also, it makes the enzymes. And these enzymes are protein. They speed up the chemical reactions in every cell of our human body. And these reactions are in trillions, in every millisecond, 7 or 24 hours 7. Because we have 37 trillions of cells, human cells, and we have 10 times the number of these cells in our microbiome. So imagine if we start in a practical reason, I will tell you. You see, bowel cancer is 22 to 30% higher in people with diabetes type 2. And nowadays, there are great studies and books about how to reverse diabetes type 2 by natural means, by the food and physical exercises. And if you want to be more educated, I refer you to books, which is called Obesity Code, Diabetic Code, another book, and the third book, The Complete Guide to Fasting, by Dr. Jason Fung, Jason Fung, Fung. He is a urologist, but he is interested in the subject, and he wrote these books. So, simply put, what I mean is that if you have type 2 diabetes, and even you lose 5% of your body weight, very little. Suppose you are 100 kilograms and you lose 5 kilograms. This will help to improve your blood pressure, your cholesterol level, and this can have a big impact on your overall health and go a long way to reducing your risk of serious complications like heart disease and stroke. Of course, weight, it is a very sensitive issue or subject for many people. And getting to an ideal weight and healthy weight, it is easier said than done. The problem is the doing. The doing is more important than the knowing. The doing is more important than the saying. The doing is more important than talking. Why? Because the doing is the challenge of change. Doing is to create a new healthy lifestyle and new habits. And I would refer you to my video about the conditioned reflex and how the brain make the habits by repeated act. And then a new reflex or a new neurological arc, ARC, in the brain will develop. So we said if you lose 5% of your body weight, you will see improvement. Suppose you lose around 15 kilograms, this could put you into diabetes remission. And what does it mean, remission? It means that you are coming off your diabetes medication completely. And this is a life-changing possibility. This is even more likely if you lose the weight nearer to your diagnosis and quicker. It is a myth, or it is a logical fallacy, Logical fallacy means there is defect in reasoning that losing weight slowly is better for you. No. If you are diagnosed with diabetes type 2, the quicker you lose your weight after the diagnosis, the more benefit you will get before the damage happens to the cells. Of course, diabetes remission in people with type 2 diabetes mean that your blood sugar level will be healthy without needing to take any diabetes medication. And why I talk about diabetes type 2 and the subject is cancer? Because it's all the same. Diabetes type 2, overweight, obesity, cancer, all the same road. All the same story, the same problem. Inflammation related to the environmental factor which lead to changes in the gene. It is all the same. So, diabetes is a very serious disease. It is connected to obesity and overweight, and it is also connected to colorectal cancer. Diabetes as such, type 2, increase the incidence of colorectal cancer. And also, by indirect way, because of the obesity and overweight, the cases of colorectal cancer will increase. Because there is higher incidence of colorectal cancer in diabetes type 2, in overweight and obesity. And they are all connected. In fact, I talk about colorectal cancer as a hanger, to hang many problems and to discuss many problems, many biological problems, and to use it as a subject to talk about other things. So, you see, when the patient present themselves with diabetes, already they have the problem perhaps 10 years ago. But when they present to the primary care, they check their blood. They found the blood level is high. And also they check hemoglobin A1C, and they found it is high. And what does it mean, hemoglobin A1C? It means the sugar which is attached to the hemoglobin, and it is found in the red blood cell. And why they do hemoglobin A1C? Because it indicates the past history of blood sugar. Because red blood cells live in the blood for 3 months. So this will give us an idea about the blood sugar in the past. And this test shows us a point in time in the last 3 months, what is the blood sugar. So colorectal cancer is among the most commonly diagnosed cancer, with about 1 million new cases all over the world every year, and about 600,000 deaths worldwide every year or each year. There is a convincing evidence, now we are talking about food, that garlic, vitamin B6, magnesium, active living, physical activity, maintaining healthy body weight, maintaining healthy waistline, avoiding red meat, processed meat, burned meat, avoiding alcohol, avoiding smoking, as well as taking HRT in postmenopausal women. HRT means hormone replacement therapy. This will protect against developing CRC in a significant way, in a very big way. Of course, my personal view about HRT is different. I believe in natural food which contain hormones. For example, soya contains phytoestrogen. Phyto means plant. So it is a plant estrogen. And also progesterone. It is found in food. For example, yam, Y-A-M. And there are many plants which contain the hormones. There is evidence that it is good to eat food which is rich in fruits, in vegetables. And why? Because fruits and vegetables are rich in fibers and folate. And fibers, of course, there are 2 types, the soluble fibers and the insoluble fibers. Fish, to eat fish, omega-3 fatty acid, selenium, calcium, vitamin D. They believe that for high-risk population, especially in young people, aspirin have to be shown to protect against the development of colonic adenomas. And what is adenoma? Adenoma means gland. And mostly the colon cancer arises from these adenomas. So colorectal cancer is decreased by taking aspirin. But look at this. They don't know till now the minimal effective dose, meaning the smallest dose of aspirin that works. Till now it is unclear. As well as there are side effects of aspirin. And mostly it causes bleeding from the gut, especially in the elderly people. And my mother is killed in Iraq because of aspirin. She was giving aspirin in a small dose, they thought, as a prevention for stroke, not as a treatment. She recovered from the stroke, and the stroke was due to high systolic blood pressure, which is related to emotion. It is related to high sympathetic nervous system activity, and the treatment for such high systolic blood pressure is not aspirin. It is relaxation, meditation, and how to modulate your emotion. To thin the blood, the best way, for my opinion, is to take onion and garlic. It will make the blood thin. That's it. So we have to be careful when we said aspirin. But in young people with syndrome like HNPCC, H mean hereditary and non-P polyposis, C colon, C cancer. So HNPCC mean hereditary non-polyposis colon cancer or hereditary non-polyposis colorectal cancer, which is a cause of 3 to 5% of CRC, colorectal cancer. And before we give aspirin, we have to do the genetic test to detect the genes which are mutant or changed in this syndrome. And these genes are germline genes. It's not one gene, it's many genes, sequence of genes with many names, and they are all in the family or the tribe which is called mutant germline DNA MMR genes. And what does it mean? Mutant means changing. The nitrogenous base on the gene different. So instead of A, adenine, perhaps there is thymine, or there is cytosine, or there is a guanine. That's it. It's the nitrogenous bases as letters on the DNA. And the DNA means deoxyribonucleic acid, D no oxygen, D no oxygen, deoxyribonucleic acid. MMR mean mismatch repair genes. What does it mean? These genes are involved in correcting the mistake made when DNA is copied in a cell. You see, every cell, it grows and divides, and it is called the cell cycle. And it is many steps. Of course, these steps, there are mistakes happen, but there are genes which work as check and balances to correct these mistakes, to repair the mistakes. And if the cells cannot repair the mistakes, it has to die. Because the body does not want to have DNA or genes that produce not good proteins, that produce poor function. The cell does not want to have poor functioning cells. So these mismatch repair genes are found in this syndrome. But it is not the gene itself. It is when it is changing. That is the most important thing. These genes, they are present, but they change. And not only one. It should be many genes. This is very important. Because single mutation does not produce cancer. It should be many mutations, then the tumor cells will be divided and will become cancer. So now, about red meat, processed meat, and burnt meat, they find in the studies the frequency of red meat consumption. How many times a person eats red meat? Breakfast, lunch, and supper? or how many times per week. It is very important also as the amount which is consumed. In fact, the frequency, they found in some studies, it is more than the amount consumed. And it is associated with higher colorectal carcinogenesis. Carcinogenesis means making cancer. Processing method or cooking method are very important. Very well cooked meat or meat cooked in a direct contact with the flames were reported to raise CRC. Now we come to the fruits and vegetables. We said fibers and folic acid. And many observational studies have reported an inverse association between dietary fiber and CRC risk. What does it mean, inverse relationship? Mean the more fiber, the less cancer. The less fiber in the food, the more cancer. So this is the inverse association, with a relative reduction of up to 40%. This is in United States studies. Even more than 30%, up to 40%. In UK, they decided or they find that 30% of bowel cancer are caused by little fibers. In USA, they found up to 40%. So it is dose related. The more fiber one eats, the better. You see, if you go to Africa or to these undeveloped countries, they call them undeveloped countries, they eat a lot of fibers. 100 grams per day, some people reported 150 grams of fiber a day, and they have no colon cancer or rectal cancer, or very few cases. In United States, they eat very little fibers in their food, perhaps 10 grams, 12 grams per day, and the recommended dose, at least one should get between 25 grams to 35 grams. It depends which population you are studying, which country, what food you eat. It is not fixed, but the more fibers, the better. So each 10 grams of fibers per day, total dietary fibers, the relative risk of developing colorectal cancer was reduced by 0.9, meaning is almost 1. So it is dose related. And this is they find by meta-analysis. Meta-analysis means they put all the studies about the fibers and colorectal cancer, and then they study this subject and find the trend or the pattern. And meta-analysis is much stronger than a single study. And the fibers, the insoluble fiber and the soluble fiber. The soluble fibers are found inside the fruits and vegetables, and they dissolve in water. And a good example is in food, vegetables, fruits, and also psyllium husk, which is called asparagus in Hindi. And the origin is from a plant which is grown in India or Pakistan. It is called Plantago ovata, psyllium husk. These soluble fibers, they increase the bulk of the stool, and so they increase the motility of the colon. The food will stay less time in the colon. And this means that the contact between the carcinogens in the food, which are the factors which produce a tumor and cancer, the time of contact is less between these carcinogens and the colon lining, and so there is less cancer. And soluble fibers are very important in the bowel movement, in the consistency of the stool, and in combining with carcinogens, combining with bile acids, and this will reduce also the risk factor of cancer. Insoluble fibers are found on the outer wall of the vegetables, of the fruits, of the whole grains, of beans, and these also increase the bulk of the stool, but they make a good food for the microorganism in the colon. And this is very important because this microorganism will produce a lot of metabolites and good materials and good molecules like vitamins, hormones, vitamin K2, vitamin B12, and short-chain fatty acid. Short-chain fatty acid, especially butyrate, it is very important for the health of the colonocyte, mean the cell which lie in the colon. So these fibers, you could imagine, they are just like organic compost of a nice garden or a fertilizer, because the garden inside your colon will be full of flowers, and these nice flowers are the microorganisms. And the weeds, which are the bad microorganisms, will be less. So consider the microbiome inside your gut as your garden. Also, the dietary folate or folic acid from the dietary supplement and food fortification is necessary to synthesize, mean making, repairing, and methylating the DNA or deoxyribonucleic acid. So folate, it is involved in the DNA synthesis and repair. It is especially important during periods of rapid cell division and growth, for example, pregnancy and infancy, and also in surgery, in wound healing, after operations, minor, medium, and major surgeries, also in orthopedic, in fracture healings. So the folate, it helps to prevent the damage or the change of the DNA that might lead to cancer. Folate role in CRC or colorectal cancers and the production of this cancer have been extensively studied. There are a lot of studies. A human cannot synthesize folate de novo, meaning inside, in vivo, but therefore the folate has to be supplied through diet to meet our daily requirement with fresh vegetables and fruits being the major sources, natural sources. There are growing data, many data, over the effect of folic acid supplementation on cancer risk. You see, they compare whether you take synthetic or natural. And most studies shows that no association with the artificial synthetic supplementation. There is association of reducing the cancer by giving high dietary folate, meaning giving a proper natural food is much better than the artificial synthetic supplement. And this diet, which is rich in folate, it was associated with 40% reduced risk of colorectal adenoma. With respect to the dose, the minimum essential serum folate concentration, because it is a blood test, we can ask our GPs to do folic acid level in the blood, and it is above 8 nanogram per mil. Nano means 1 billionth of a gram, and billion is 1,000 million, and million is 1,000,000. So it makes sense that the folic acid in the food, it is more absorbed, it is more organic, it is more natural. The synthetic, artificial supplementation, it is not organic, it is not absorbed like the natural one, and the body cannot even recognize it. So, for reducing the risk of developing colorectal adenoma, the conclusion is that folate status or condition was inversely related to the risk of developing CRC, meaning more folate, less colorectal cancer. Less folate, more colorectal cancer. Now, we come to the garlic. Garlic is characterized by high content in organosulfur compounds and flavonoids. The allyl sulfur constituent in the garlic comprise about 1% of its dry weight, and it is responsible for the health benefit of garlic, the sulfur. Garlic also contains other constituents such as flavonoids and selenium that are considered to have antioxidant properties and anti-carcinogenic activities. What does it mean, antioxidant? Simply put, oxidant. Oxidation is just like rusting. Your metal pan, you fry. If you use metal or iron, it will be rusted. So whenever I will say antioxidant mean no rusting, because rusting causes damage to the DNA and damage to the structures of the cell. So oxidation is rusting, just to make it simple and not to complicate things. So this garlic, it has antioxidant and anti-carcinogenic. Carcino mean cancer, genic making cancer. So it prevents the formation of cancer. So there is preclinical investigations and studies which provide convincing evidence that garlic and related sulfur-containing compounds like onion, leeks, cruciferous vegetables. Why it is called the cruciferous vegetables? Cruciferous is like a cross because of the shape of the flower of these vegetables, like a cross. So it is called cruciferous vegetables. It belongs to the family called Brassica. These cruciferous vegetables, cabbage, there is white cabbage, red cabbage, Chinese cabbage, Savoy cabbage, Turkish cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, mushrooms, asparagus, artichoke. They are not cruciferous, but they contain fibers and they contain some sulfur, and I want to mention them as groups. Also turnip. So these sulfur-containing compounds inhibit the carcinogen-inducing tumors in various organs of the body. You see, if you look to this group, for example, red cabbage, perhaps it is better than the white cabbage. Why? Because always the colors in the plants have anti-carcinogenic effect. These colors, they are antioxidant, anti-rusting, and some of the people, they call them polyphenols. Colors in the plant is good, very good for health. And turnip, in Iraq, we make it like fermented. We cut it into pieces. We add 1 beetroot with it. We very little salt. And in 1 week, it will be a very tasty fermented vegetables. And we eat it with our salads. And the color is red. And this is beautiful. Also turnip, when I used to be in Baghdad Medical School, they sell it. They sell it in the ground of the medical school in trolleys. And it is hot. And they add to it, they put it on a plate, cut it, put very little salt on the top. And they cook it with the dates, give it some sweetness. So it is bitter and sweet, and it is very lovely taste, the turnip. We use it a lot, especially in the winter, because the food there, it was seasonal. And we do it at home also, the turnip. We boil it with little dates and then put it on a plate, cut it into square pieces, put a little salt, and eat it with fork. So in clinical studies, which are called randomized controlled trials, conducted with samples of patients, they found significant suppression in both the total size, meaning the space, and the number of adenomas in colorectal cancer. Patient, after 12 months of high dose aged garlic, mean old garlic extract, a 29% reduction in developing at least one new adenoma. So, meta-analysis confirmed the inverse association between garlic intake and colorectal cancer risk, with about 30% reduction in the incidence of cancer in those people eating diet containing high garlic versus low consumption of garlic. And the amount was 16 grams per week, the average difference across these studies. So sulfur is a mineral that is critical to human body. It is the third most common mineral found in our bodies after the first one, which is calcium, and the second one is phosphorus. Sulfur is needed for many chemical reactions involved in the metabolism of drugs, steroids, and compounds that are not naturally present in the body, like, for example, food additives they put in the processed food and environmental pollutant. Sulfur is also important for the production of glutathione. Glutathione is the most important and the most potent in strength. Potent means strong, antioxidant in the body. And antioxidant means anti-rusting. It reduces the rusting inside the cell. It helps protect our cells from damage and support also liver health and every cell in the body, the glutathione. Sulfur is used also for a variety of skin disorders like acne, dandruff, and antidote for acute exposure to radiation or to radioactive material. And also it is used in babies who have napkin rash. You know, when we put the babies, the napkin and the urine and the stool, they get red at the bottom and the front. So we use sulfur ointment to protect the baby's skin it is called napkin rash, to protect it from this redness and inflammation. So sulfur is also important in wound healing, in surgery, especially it produces the keratin. The keratin, it is the horny, hard, thick, dead layer on the surface of the skin. This is very important because this layer, the skin as a whole, and especially this dead layer at the top, it acts as a barrier to protect our body from invaders like bacteria, viruses. And this skin is part of our immune system, which is called innate part of immune system. Innate, I-N-N-A-T-E. It is old immune system. It is in our body, it evolved over millions of years. We are born with it. We did not learn it after birth. We are born with it, this immune system. And this keratin layer, which is dead, and sometimes when you wash and then you get some dead cells out, this keratin layer, it is very important. For example, COVID-19 will not attack the skin because this is dead. The virus needs healthy living cell. So it will attack the skin if and only if there is injury and there is breach in the continuity of the surface of the skin. This is from me, but It could attack anything, but it needs healthy cells. So that's why it goes to the respiratory lining, to the gut lining, to the eye, the conjunctiva, because there is cells, they are healthy. They are like the skin, but the outer layer is unkeratinized, stratified squamous epithelium in the conjunctiva, in the mouth. Or sometimes simple columnar epithelium. But inside the body, there is no keratinization. So the top 7 sulfur-rich foods are allium vegetables. Allium mean onion, garlic, leeks, scallions, shallots. Allium vegetables may help prevent cancer, including esophageal cancer, colon cancer, stomach cancer, breast cancer, and lung cancer. Garlic also contains a chemical which is called allicin, ALLICIN, and this is antibacterial and antiviral. But how you make the allicin? You should eat it fresh garlic, and also crush it in a pestle and mortar, with mortar and pestle, and then crush it and leave it for about 10 minutes to get activated. Then eat it with something. Don't eat the garlic on its own, because garlic is very strong and may cause burn, like chemical burn when you swallow it in the stomach. It could burn the mucosa of the mouth, of the esophagus, of the pharynx, and of the stomach. So it is better to eat it with the salads, put it on your soup, put it on your rice, put it on your chapati. So this garlic, some people ask, I will eat capsule. No. Dry, no. Swallow the garlic. No. Swallow the garlic clove. No. It should be crushed, because this chemical will be activated, and then you can't eat it. The second thing is the cruciferous vegetables. We talk about cauliflower, kale, arugula, bok choy, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, collard greens, radishes, and watercress. There are many studies which shows that watercress can repair the DNA damage. So also I would mention asparagus and artichoke, because these fibers, they are very, very important for health. And artichoke, you can grow it in your garden in Britain. It grows. The weather is okay. Even asparagus, you can grow it in your garden. And also there is inulin fibers, and espargol, which is psyllium husk, as we said. And espargol, it is called in Hindi espargol. And its origin is from Plantago ovata in India and Pakistan. And it is in medicine, from the psyllium husk, they extract tablet, pessaries, powder, they call it metamucil. M-E-T-A, mucil, M-U-C-I-L, and they use it as laxative for people with constipation. But the best form to take metamucil is the powder form, because you can add to it water, and then it will get bulky, and then you eat it. And also when you take it, you should drink water, because sometimes it might cause obstruction, and this is no good. So you have to drink plenty of water, because it absorbs plenty of water, and it will bulk the stool. And the other thing about metamucil, or about the psyllium husk, it works in both constipation and diarrhea. Not only in constipation. No, in constipation, it makes the stool softer, and it increases the bowel movements by increasing the bulk of the stool. And in diarrhea, it will bulk the stool. It is good in both conditions, diarrhea and constipation. Thank you very much.